Hello, today this is Mike Verhoog speaking, and right now I'd like to do a walkthrough of our T100 remote in the app. This is the remote, and I factory reset the remote, and we're just going to walk through it just like if you've got your brand new remote, your brand new drone, and you're just ready to go. But yeah, first thing that comes up when you first do your remote is the privacy data authorization. There's some of these things we got to work through. So read through it, see what you want to share. Some of this stuff helps to make the drones better. And same the product improvement project, we can decide on that. You can read it if you want. And then we get to the startup page. So here first thing we need to do is turn on Wi-Fi. So we can upload new things or even log into our account. So you just swipe down from the top just like any cell phone or something like that. And then you press and hold the Wi-Fi symbol, and I'm just going to log into my Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, starting at the top left, we're just going to walk through this stuff about what's on the remote and how to get started. So there's the login. You need a DJI account. I already have an account, so we're just going to log in. But if you don't, you just go to the bottom and create an account. Okay, once you're logged in, there'll be default team will be there. So you guys select a team that your drone's going to be part of. We have different teams because we're using this from a different drone, but I'm going to select default team, and then working across the top. So we're logged in now. This is sort of some history. It records kind of what you've done. Also, these are some of the general settings. The one thing I do use in here for sure is we make sure that the units of measure are what you like on your farm or my farm. I switch it to imperial. Also on here is some of your privacy settings, storage management, network guide. These are things you can look through. There's the beginner guide here. If that's on, it'll sort of give you some prompts to teach you about your remote. Beside that is uploading and downloading from the cloud. So here you can send like a boundary from a field or some of the materials you've put into your drone and send them to the cloud, or download them from the cloud from other drones. And there'll be videos about how to use this kind of stuff. Then on the bottom, we have what's called log upload. This is really important for if you have any warranty issues or something's acting a little funny on the drone, well, then we can upload that and DJI can take a look at it. That all happens in here. Device management. In here, you have all your different pieces. So you have your controller, your aircraft, charging devices, RTK dongle, a relay, or RTK mobile station. So the more things you have hooked up, the more things that will sort of light up. And you can select on them. So there's the controller to tell you all the different information about the controller. If there's a firmware update, this is where that kind of stuff will be in device management. You can look at the aircraft, same thing. You can see, this is also an important thing where you would link your drone to your remote. Say you have an issue and you end up with a different remote, you would just do that right here. Now, next step is to go to the operations screen. So we just press begin. It's going to talk to us a little bit, tells us what's going on. We're hooked up to the drone right now. The first thing we're going to see is the task mode. So there's a few different tasks here. A couple of them we're going to use mostly, but they're all useful. So we have route mode. This is where you're going to make a map and fly a route. So if you're spraying your field, it'll follow the way lines. You got your Agras lift mode. That's only for the lifting system. It has a bunch of different functions in there. Then there's the manual mode. That's if you're going to fly and spray in manual or manual plus mode. There's the fruit tree mode. Is what it says. It's for fruit. It's for spraying trees or orchards. Then there's the route mappings and the fruit tree mapping. Now we can go out and we can do like a LiDAR map of an area, all really neat stuff. For now, we're gonna select route mode. And now this is all the help stuff. So this is gonna walk you through and learn. I'm gonna shut this stuff all sort of off just because I'm gonna be doing that with you. So with the remote, we're gonna start off in the settings section. So that's the gear in the top left. So select the gear, and we wanna make sure the drone is all set up and ready to go for what you're trying to do. We're gonna walk through all these different tabs on the side. Aircraft. So in the aircraft setting, you're gonna connection routing or return to home speed. So this is the speed it's gonna go to your waylines and back from your waylines. I typically have it set fairly quickly, but this is all with what you're comfortable with. And a lot of this stuff I've been flying for a number of years. I'm gonna set here, and I'm also gonna recommend, if you're a beginner, set it a little slower just so you get used to stuff. Then there's the connection routing. Return to home altitude. So we have right now it's 39 feet. What I like to set this to is higher than sort of the obstacles in the field or where you're landing. So if you got a big tall tree that's 80 feet, I very highly recommend moving this all the way up so you're above that 80 feet, like 100 feet, right? And that way when it stops in the field, it goes up to 100 feet, flies home, and then comes straight down. This makes things a lot safer, especially when you're busy filling and doing your stuff. Says how it works all right there. The update home point. This is to change your home point. So standard is the home point is wherever you take off from. So you take off and it's gonna land back in the same place. If you decide you wanna change the home point, you can set it as the aircraft location. So wherever the drone is right now, not the plane. Or you can set it as a controller location. So wherever you're standing with the controller, you can press this button and then it will land there. The next thing down is the aircraft response. So when the tank is empty, right now it's set to return to home, which is what I like. You can set it to hover, ascend to 10 feet, or return to home. Personally, return to home is probably the best option. That's what I use. When the task is complete, same thing. Do you want it to hover or return to home? I like return to home. RC signal loss. So this is important. When you lose signal to your drone, what do you want it to do? Hover, land, or return to home? Highly recommend return to home because you don't know where it's going to land. And if it's just going to hover, it's going to sit there and run out of battery. This little toggle below it, super neat. If you're in a task, so you're flying a field and you get to the back and it goes up a big hill and then it comes back down near the bush, and you lose connection. With this off, it will go back to whatever you have set in your RC signal lost. So right now it's at return to home. So it would go up and return to home. If you select this, it will continue on its flight path. It knows where it's going, so it's gonna keep whatever you're doing, like say you're spraying, it'll keep spraying, it'll turn around at the bush, it'll come back over the hill, and then it will reconnect to your remote. I typically run with that on in most situations. If I know the field really well and I know this is a problem in this one little area, that's what I'll do. Ideally, you always have connection to your drone. Now, spotlight, I have it on auto. This is fairly obvious. If it's dark, it turns on. If it's light, it stays off. You can also have it off or on. Very, very simple. Now we have these other tabs. So flight optimization, let's click this. Here we have a bunch of options. So auto route spacing adjustment. This is super cool. So if you have a field that's 105 feet and you have 10-foot swaths, say, that's not realistic, but maybe 25, 30-foot swaths, but say 10-foot swaths, instead of like 10 swaths of 10 feet and then one swath of 5 feet, which is going to make a bunch of overlap, it would shrink them all down so that you have even swath coverage across the whole field. Does it all by itself. The smart resume. I always fly with this on. Some people like it, some people don't. What this does is if you're flying a route and you run out of spray halfway back in the field or 3/4 of the way back, it will start back at the front or closest to where you are. and it will spray back. And at the end, it will fill in those little gaps at the back. Makes the drone much more efficient. The last thing you want to do is have a full tank of liquid or dry, fly all the way to the back, burn tons of battery, and then start your task. So I like to use it on. If you shut it off, what it does is it just goes back to that spot where you ended and starts off again. And you'll have your field just nice and evenly coming across, and everything will be done as you come. But I'm willing to bet it'll be less efficient. Display the empty tank point. I always have it on. It just tells you where the tank is going to be empty on your screen. It's kind of handy. And then there's the rectify calibration offset. This I don't use very much, but with it mostly you use this with fruit tree mode. It's just about keeping everything really accurate. But if you're using RTK or stuff like that, typically we don't need to use this. In fruit tree mode, we use this all the time. We'll talk about that in depth more in a different video. Now we're going to back out of this and we're going to go to alert and assist. Now these are a lot of things that just sort of heads up on the screen. So there's the AR aircraft shadow. That's going to sort of tell you, where you're going to land. There's the aircraft navigation. I really like this one. If it's coming up to something and it sees it and it's going to fly around it, it gives you confidence that it's actually going to fly around it. So you'll see that like green line and it'll tell you where the drone's going to go before it's going to go there. I really like that one. Assist waypoints. So it just puts more things heads up on your screen. Highlight people and vehicles is fairly obvious. So when you see somebody, the AI in there recognizes that there's a person or a truck or a car or whatever, and it sort of lights them up. Obstacle highlights, this is going to do like hydro wires and poles, just like the picture there describes, fairly simple. Route visualization, I like to keep this one on. I like it because especially flying in manual, you'll know you're going straight. So those lines you see in the picture there show you sort of where the drone is going. So you can line those up with like a headland and then fly right against the headland. I really like that one. Now we're going to back out of here. Flight protection. Now this is maximum distance that you can fly. Says exactly what it is. You just adjust to what you're comfortable with. Maximum flight altitude. We have it set to 328. Really, a spray drone doesn't really need to ever go higher than that. You don't need to be higher than that. These are some things that I would recommend never shutting off. Frame arm lock in detection. So the arm is locked so that the drone can actually fly proper. There's a safety sensor there. You can toggle it off. It's not smart. Not smart. I'm sure there's somebody's used it for whatever reason. Payload lock detection, same thing. The T100 is clamped down to its implement. So it's clamped down to the sprayer or the lift system or the dry spreader. Refill detection. So as you're filling, the drone won't take off. It's just a safety thing. It sort of measures as the liquid's going in. You can turn this off so that you can take off while somebody's filling it. That's up to you. Not safe. Liquid level meter error. So when it's over the weight, it will not let you fly. Safety check at landing. So when it comes back to land, it's going to ask you, can I land? Now, unless you have, this only really works in RTK, because without RTK, it always checks anyway. At the bottom here, we have another little tab. It's called the Unlock Geo Zone. This will be for, it looks like we have one in here already, for flying in an area that drone won't let you in, say around an airport or something like that. You can apply for an unlock, and then this is where that'll all show up. I'm sure we'll have a video someday about that, or you can call and ask us. Just backing up here. Now we're going to go to, no, we did flight protection. We're going to go to sensor calibration. Now, I don't use this really, but if you ever do need to, it'll pop up an alert that your sensor needs to be calibrated. So in here, this is where you'll find that stuff. It'll also tell you, what I like is while you're flying, you can see the RPMs of your motors. It's good to look at every once in a while to see if everything's working the way it should. And then there's the LiDAR calibration at the bottom. Now, There's the linking button here. That's to link your drone to your remote. And now we're going to move on to the sprayer tab. So in the sprayer tab, spraying and spreading system, you can shut that off. So click it off. I use it a lot when I do demos because then I can actually run a route without spray in the tank. Otherwise, it won't let you run the route because there's nothing to do. So you can just click on and off. Atomize sprayed so that the motors will spin. That's, I mean, if you're spraying, you need to have that on, but if you're doing some testing, you can shut that off. Here we have the 4 nozzles or the misting package put on. So we'll go the full mode with all 4 sprinklers on. You can select here and put the 2 on. So full. Spraying system, real-time data. So this just tells you sort of what's going on as it's being used. Flow rate, amount sprayed, it's all said right here. Same here, a little more detail, tells you kind of what each pump is doing, what each sprinkler is doing. Super handy when you're trying to find a plug or an issue or something like that. This here is to clean your hose out. It's really obvious. Just press it and it does the job. Clean trapped air, you can start. So when you start spraying, immediately you have spray. You're not waiting for that air to come through the system. Flow calibration, very important as well. You want to make sure that the right amount of liquid is coming out so you can run a calibration. It sort of walks you through. You just press it, it walks you right through it. Here we have the 26-gallon tank on. You can also select the 20-gallon tank, but that is not what we have, so it's the 26-gallon tank. And here we have the low liquid level, not empty tank. So there'll always be a little bit of liquid in, but that's better for the pumps to keep it on low liquid level. Next tab down is the controller. Here you can sort of customize your controller. So there's different modes here for how different people fly. I always fly in mode 2. You can calibrate it. The only time I've ever seen this used is if somebody drops the remote and the stick gets bent or something. You can actually calibrate it here so that it'll center is center again. This is sort of a map of what each button does. It'll walk you through that. Then there's the custom buttons. The one thing I like, and this is sort of maybe a more advanced thing for somebody to do, do not do this when you're first starting. But as you go, there is times when you want to turn the radars off. Sometimes you're landing in a tight spot or on a trailer and doesn't want to land nicely. I like to put my L2 to obstacle avoidance. That way when I press L2, my obstacle avoidance shuts off and I can land nice and safe. Well, I can land without any alarms or it obstacle avoiding on me. But again, that's when the training wheels are off. We want to make sure that when you start, you don't have that button. You want to accidentally press it and it'll fly right into a tree, right? None of the safety, none of the bumpers are on the drone when you press that button, okay? So I use it, but my training wheels are off. I've been doing this for a number of years now. This just gives you what everything else does. You can redefine all these things. The one I use is the obstacle avoidance, the L2 there. Now moving on to sensor tab. Now the multi-directional obstacle avoidance. I mean, this is on all the time. Don't shut it off unless you're doing something where you need to like land in a tight spot like I just talked about. We have the different scenarios. There's flatland. That's just like it says, nice flat field. Everything's real simple. Hill and orchard or above water. I like to keep it often in hill and orchard. It's sort of my area. It's got some hills and stuff in it. But this is where you see that green path in front of your drone that sort of tells you where it's going to go. I really like that on the remote. You can see if it's going to avoid something. You see it ahead of time. You know that you have confidence it's going to fly around that tree or hydro pool. Again, we want you to map those things out, but if you didn't, you know it's going to go around it. Above water, this is if you are flying above water. My understanding is that the water changes the way that the radars sense it, so we got to turn that on. Altitude stabilization, again, keep it on all the time. Then there's obstacle bypassing. You can select this on or select this off and just make sure you know what you're doing. But you see here, it shows this is when it sees an obstacle, it's gonna actually try and fly around it or over it or under it, I guess, you know, if it's a hydro wire or something. Don't rely on this when you're in your fields. It's not safe. But it is handy when you've got some, you know, you're doing a headland pass and there's a branch sticking out, it'll like fly nicely around it. But fly slower and keep an eye on it, keep your hands on the remote at all times. Typically when I'm in the field, I have this off. So when it's off and it sees the obstacle, it'll just stop. If it's on, it'll slow down and it'll fly around it nicely. It actually works really cool. But best case, you map all the obstacles out so you don't have to worry about it. These are just extra bumpers, but we like to be safe with our drones. Then at the bottom is the radar settings. These things are all, you just leave them on, honestly. I don't know why you turn them off if there's an issue with something and you can play with it, but really keep these things on. It keeps your drone nice and safe. So we're just gonna back out here and go to the RTK tab. Now, if you've got RTK, you can click this on, and here's where you're gonna connect to your RTK base station. So we have it selected to the RTK2. You can select different ones in here, and you connect and it tells you sort of the satellites and all that kind of stuff, so you know you're nicely connected. And if you have an issue, you can sort of select it in here. It'll give you a warning at a low battery. I like to keep this to 20%, to be honest with you. Otherwise, you get too many alarms. RTK diagnostics, if you're ever having issues and you can't see. Now, we don't have it hooked up right now, but you'll see everything is connected when it'll all light up nice when everything's working good. Just back out of here. And now we're going to go to the battery tab. This is going to give you some settings about how to set it so you don't run out of battery. It's super important. Now, when I train somebody new, I really like to have you set to return to home at 20% battery, maybe even 30% battery. So RTH, when the battery gets down to 20%, it comes home. When you have more experience, the training wheels are off. I have it as a warning. So when it's 20% or 30%, you hear it and you know, I'm low in battery, but now I'm going to manage this, right? But that comes with experience. Critical low battery level is at 5%. Now, critically low means 5%, it's going to land. So you're flying and it's just going to stop and it's going to land. Now, the important thing, if you're over something that you know you can't land on, it's dangerous, it's not a good idea, okay? You can actually, with your remote, control it, go up, go forward, but as soon as you let go, it's important to know, as soon as you let go of those sticks, it's gonna start coming down. So if you're in a spot where you gotta move 10 feet, move that 10 feet, you got 5% battery, lift it up a little bit, move forward, and land it safely. At the bottom, you can change these thresholds. Again, I like 5% landing. I wouldn't change that too much, but I would maybe when you're starting out, move that up to that 30% number. It's just the training wheels are on. We're going for safety here. Let's worry about efficiency later, okay? Again, I'm gonna put this back to 20 because that's what we use when we're using the drone. So that's it for the settings tab. We're gonna back out of that. So that's that gear in the corner. Now, once you have your drone remote all set up, the next sort of thing you're gonna do is use the drone, right? So the important thing here is in the top left corner, we're gonna select our mode. I'm gonna focus on the route mode because that's what we're using a lot of times when we're going to spray or start a mission. So we're gonna click on the route mode. In here, you'll be able to set up a field. So there's different ways of doing this. We can zoom out here. We can see my farm here, and we can add some points. So you click on the add button, and we're gonna make a field, okay? And we're gonna press add, and we're going to use the crosshair to make a little field. Now we do videos about how to make fields, so I'm just gonna show you how this works. Just, press around like this. Watch our other videos. There's different ways to do your routes. You can do it this way on the screen. You can use what's called M+. You can upload it from your tractor. Not really recommended, but you can do that. So that's here. And then here's the different lines you can mark. So we just did a boundary. You can do a little obstacle in there. Say this little tree. We make this little obstacle. Okay. And then it works that obstacle out of the field. We can do a round obstacle. So you just click on it and it changes, and you can change the width of the size of that obstacle. So you just make it a bit bigger, and it makes that whatever obstacle bigger. And then we can do non-application areas. So that's where it'll fly over the area, but it won't spray the area. Okay. Pretty simple stuff, but we're walking through this. Lots of different options here. You can mark a point, mark a line. That's just if you see something in the field you want to remember for later. You can also select crosshair. You can use your controller to do this. Instead of using that crosshair, your controller is where it puts the points, or the aircraft. I typically use a different way. I use what's called M+ mode. Now on the side here, now we have our field, right? So we've made this little field here. We can, on the side, we can do flight route settings. So that's on the left-hand side, tab here. So that's just right here where this arrow is. Now you can do route spacing. That's obviously your swath width. You can widen the field margin. So that's the distance the drone will fly from the outside of the field. So overall, we have 5 feet or 4.9 feet from the outside. We can also change that to just one side of the field we want to make larger, or a different side of the field. Typically I'm just using the overall, but say you have a neighbor that you want to keep away from his crop, or the bushes at the back, you can just increase the margin in that area, keep things a little safer. Obstacle boundaries. So if there's an obstacle in the middle of the field, you can change the distance from that obstacle. So from in our map here, from that red triangle. And then you can change your starting point. So right now it's starting here, probably closest to where I am. You can also just start in the other corner. So you just click there. Cancel that. And then there's the advanced settings. So here we have route only. So that's just going to do the way lines and no headland at the end. This is route and boundary. So it's going to do the routes, and then it's going to do a headland pass at the end. And then you can do just boundary. So it's just going to do the headland pass. Clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever direction you want to pick. And then route segmenting. Now, this is something that we'll talk about in different videos of when you would use this, but basically you can decide, I'm going to do this much of the field. I'm going to do, 25 to 75% of the field, and then leave the other bits. That's what this tool is used for. Okay. So we're just going to cancel out of this. Then we have course angle. So that's here. That's where we're going to change the course angle. Now, if we haven't optimized, it's going to go for the longest way, but if we turn that off, we can actually move that course angle, or we can even just double click along one side and it does whatever you want. So we can double click on this side, it does the short ways, or double click on here, it does the long ways. Okay, so we're just going to leave that optimization on. All right. And then single side spraying. So it'll only spray out of one side of the drone. Okay. Now we're going to select out of this. Now we're going to go save. So now we're going to save this field. Now it'll pop up and you just save it as whatever you want to save it as. And then we go use. Now we get this in-flight option. So we get the application right here on the left-hand bar. Droplet size is right here. You can select that. You can do your flight speed, height above crop, route spacing, low speed ascent. And then we have the flight tab, orchard mode, return to home speed, return to home altitude. All these things can be changed in here. This is your safety stuff. Keep that stuff on. Obstacle bypassing, we talked about that. I would only ever have it on the headlands, to be honest with you. Now let's just click across here. So now that we've made this field, there's other things on this remote we want to look at. So in the left-hand corner here, we have this little video. So what's up now is like the map, and then we can click on this video and it brings up what the drone actually sees. Now we can scan down and scan up, and you can see we're in Canada, obviously. We have this nice amount of snow here, and it came pretty early, so my trailer is still sitting there. That's a little embarrassing. But anyway, you can click on this left-hand side here and it'll select between the map and then the video. And then there's a little gear in the corner of that video. You can select on that. And here we can change how the screen looks a little bit. Just going to move that. The screen layout is like this. You can also go like this. So you have sort of a split screen. I prefer this. You can also bring up this right here, which will show our LiDAR, which is super cool to look at. You can see in here, looks like the hydro pole there, and you can just sort of see that in the corner. So you know that the drone's actually seeing it. Yeah, you can play with this a little bit, see what you want to, how you want your drone set up, I guess. Okay. Now, the other thing here we want to talk about is this radar in the bottom middle. So this sort of tells you the distance you are from things. So you see on the radar here, we're about 7.4 feet from something and 4.3 to the back right. If you click on this, you can actually toggle on and off your bumpers, I call them, so your multi-directional obstacle avoidance and your altitude stabilization. And then you can also turn your obstacle bypassing on. That's all right here. So you just click on this. And if you notice, when this is off, it's red there on your symbol for the sensors. So I find that really handy. If you ever accidentally shut this off for whatever reason, you can see it right there. So we're gonna turn that back on for safety. We also have different things to look at here on the remote. So at the bottom, it has your relative to home, so distance from home, your speed, your distance in feet, and your flow gallons per minute. Then on the top left, you'll see all these warnings we have here. This is just telling us stuff that why we can't take off. So it's all in here. You can sort of select on it, and if there's something to do, you can look at it there. And then I like this little box. Right now it says field accuracy. So you can click on it. It tells you about your field and what's going on. When you're actually flying, when you're actually doing, so if we press start here, oh, it won't let me fly, but when we get into doing the field, it'll tell you how many acres you have done already, how many acres you have left, how much liquid you need, how much you've done that past flight. All that sort of information is right here. Super handy. And then on the top, we have the controller signal to the drone, the strength. We have the satellites, and we're on RTK right now. We have the battery temperature, which is super important, and the battery life left, so it's 73%. Then we have how much liquid is in the drone, which is at 0 right now. Because of the low temperature of the battery, it only is going to say, it only has a capacity of 7.7 gallons. That changes based on a lot of different factors, but temperature and charge is part of that. And then beside that, we have the remote controller battery life. So it's at 50% and the internal battery is at 23%. Then we have all these symbols up here. So we have this symbol. This is to upload a prescription. And then we have this symbol. This gives you some, you can see on the map there, I'll just toggle it on and off, you can see there. It gives you the feet of your field. This button here will erase what you've done. So if you have, they're yellow right now, once they turn green, you can actually press the erase button and it'll turn them gray. Not found a real use case for this, why you would want to use this, but you can, it still remembers that you sprayed there, but it'll turn it from green to gray. I'm sure somebody has a use for that. Then there's this button right here. So if you see there, it has that sort of a picture of the drone. So that will set your home point to the drone. And then if you select the other one, it'll set your home point to the remote. Now this little button here, you can select it, it's locked. That means the screen will stay centered on the drone. And if you select it off, it won't. So you can move it around and look at your field or whatever you want to do. Then we have the overlay here. So I always have it to satellite. You can see the field. You can also put it to standard. So you're just looking at it like, we zoom out here, you're just looking at the roads and stuff. Or we can turn that back to satellite. You can upload different maps. You can rotate your map. You can keep your past 3-day flight paths on there and show nearby fields. At the bottom here, we have visual aids. So I like the orientation on and the horizon on. I don't like the grid on, but if you have the grid on, you'll see the grid. Let me see if we can see this here. So you see the grid there. I personally don't like that, so I shut that off like that. Now, what else we got here? Basically, a lot of these things I went through super quick, but they are going to be things that we focus in more on later videos to show you sort of how to do those different options. There's also, I'm not going to get into it too much, but there's also, manual mode where you can set the parameters and you can fly and spray in manual or manual plus mode. You can do that in here. We'll have videos for that. But now you should sort of have a quick breakdown of how the DJI T100 drone remote controller and app works. Again, I said we'll have lots of other videos coming out, but thanks for watching today. And just remember, we're Drone Spray Canada. Check us out on dronespray.ca, and have a great day and keep having fun.